everyone, welcome to another video. Today I want to share with you how you can add some color behind the Thermoweb Clear Designer Toner Sheets. Now these are great if you do not have a laser printer and you want to do some foiling. You can easily buy these and make some beautiful cards. So here's a look at a few of them that I have here. This one is called Endless Leaves. There are 4 sheets in each package that you get, and they are 8.5 by 11. It gives the printed size because it does have a little bit of a border all the way around it. I cut that off and just use the printed side, but if you're doing something like a shaker where you're going to have a border around it anyway, you can keep that on there and have a little bit more space. These cut like butter. Super easy to cut. These are basically a transparency that already have the printing on there for you, the toner printed on them. And that is going to save you if you don't have a toner printer, or if you just like the designs and you know you can't get them on your own. These are fabulous. Now I went ahead and cut down one of those endless leaves to 4.25 by 5.5 inches, so an A2 size, and I'm going to be covering this up with the amber watercolor foil, also from Thermoweb. This is gorgeous. It's kind of a brown and goldish tone. It's got a little bit of silver in there too, but it's a beautiful watercolor look on foil, so you get to foil that onto your page. So I'm going to go ahead and cut down one of the pieces of my foil to slightly larger than my panel, and I have my laminator that I've already heated up. I like to go ahead and set it to the 5 mil, and then I just let it heat up for about 10 to 15 minutes. I wait about 5 minutes past when the green light comes on, just so I know it's nice and hot and ready. Now I like to use a piece of computer paper as my carrier sheet. I just fold it in half, and then that creates kind of a little folder. Then I go ahead and place my toner sheet right in there. You'll notice on them, whenever you look at them, one has completely shiny side, the other is a matte, and that's where the toner's printed. So it's a little bit of a matte look. You put your foil on with the shiny side facing up, because that's the color you want to show once everything is done. And then I go ahead and close my little computer paper folder and send this through my laminator. This doesn't take really any time at all, but you do want to let it go all the way through. I just put this one through once and it worked out perfectly. You can send it through another time if you want, but once was good enough for me on this one. So once I took it out, I let it cool down for just a little bit. You want to give it a little bit of time to cool, so that way your foil releases a little bit easier. So I let that cool for a few seconds, and then you get to do the fun part. You get to take that foil off, and you are left with this gorgeous printed foiled paper that has just a beautiful design on it, and it looks fabulous. I love that watercolor look. It gives almost a burnt look to it. It's just a really neat look and really different. Now I've got that piece, but I also have my foil that I could use on another card as well. So I'm going to save that, and I'll use that on another project. Not in this video, but later on. So there's a look at that. You can see you get 2 designs from one pass through your laminator. So it's beautiful. Now I want to add some color behind that. I really want to make this pop to be the shining kind of focal point on my card. So I went ahead and took my card base, which is an A2 size, 4.25 by 5.5. I added a little bit of masking tape on the back of that where the fold is. That way I protect it from any color. Then I'm going to do some ink blending. Now like I said, I want this to be really, really bold. So I'm going in pretty heavy with my colors here. I'm using Barn Door Fossilized Amber and Frayed Burlap, which are really nice fall colors that I'm working with here. You can use any color combination you want. It really is up to you. I just like these because they have more of a fall look to them, and they kind of go along with the amber watercolor foil that I used to foil my transfer sheet. Once I get to a certain point, I am going to bring a scrap piece of paper in here to put my fingers on. That way I don't leave any fingerprints whenever I go and touch the surface. Once you get a good amount of distress ink on there, any sort of oils, lotions, anything like that from your fingers, it's going to mess with the consistency and leave those fingerprints. So just make sure you use a little extra sheet. Then once I'm happy with my blend, I can go ahead and remove that masking tape. I find it best just to pull it straight back on itself. That way you don't rip your paper. And then I've got this gorgeous background ready to have my foil added on top of it. Now I wanted a little bit of a frame. That way I had a place to hide my adhesive. You could use liquid adhesive, a very strong liquid adhesive, where the foil is on this panel, and you wouldn't have to do this. But I went ahead and cut a craft frame that I just stuck down right on top, and I doubled up my foil or my adhesive on that, my dimensional adhesive. Then on the back of that, where that frame is, I can go ahead and add some more adhesive, and I can attach this to my card base. Now this would make a great shaker card too, so if you like that look and you like making shaker cards or interactive cards, these are great for that type of card. I wanted to keep this really focused on the foil though, so I just added that right over the card base with the frame, and then it was time to add my sentiment. Now my sentiment that I'm using today is from this stamp set from Clair Stamps. It's one of the new ones. It's called Thankful and Blessed. I used this last week, so I'll go ahead and leave that link in the top right hand corner, but it has some gorgeous sentiments in it. So I grabbed that Thankful sentiment and some icing on the cake ink from Catherine Pooler and stamped that right down onto a flag banner die cut. Then I just went ahead and added 2 layers of double-sided adhesive, dimensional adhesive, because that's what I added onto the frame. Then I popped that right on top, kind of connected it to the frame a little bit so it looks like one piece, and that is going to finish off that card. This card is so simple, but having that added shine on there really helps just kind of bring it to life and add a little bit more interest to this really simple card. I wanted to let that foil shine since it is such a unique foil. It's got that watercolor look, so that's where I wanted to keep the focus on this card. Here's a final look at it all finished, and there you get a little extra look at that dimension. Now for my second card, I'm going to be using this clear designer toner sheet. This is called Wilderness, and it's just a bunch of different kinds of trees that don't have any leaves on it, so again, perfect for fall. But I wanted to add a little bit of gold foil to this. Now for the gold foil, whenever I buy it in this larger 20-piece pack. It's a little bit more economical for me to buy it this way because I use so much of gold. I would highly suggest, if you do a lot of foiling or if you think you're going to do a lot of foiling, go for, when you can, whenever you get like the gold and the main colors like silver, that kind of thing. I like to buy those in the larger packs. Then some more of the specialty paper I like to keep in the smaller ones with the 5 pieces. That just seems to really help me save a little bit of money since I know I'm going to use so much of this. So I cut a piece of that gold foil slightly larger than my little panel here. Again, I cut this one to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I will cut it down slightly later on, but right now I wanted to go ahead and keep it just the size of an A2 card base because at this point I wasn't quite sure where I was going with the finished card. So I put this in my little folder of computer paper, make sure that I have my foil shiny side up, and then I went ahead and I've got my laminator ready to go. Again, it's set to the 5 mils. And I'll go ahead and put this through my laminator. Again, this just takes a little bit of time. This one I had just a little bit of creasing in it, so just to be sure that everything was on there, I ran it through once, then I flipped it 90 degrees and ran it through one more time. Now I let that cool, and then I went ahead and peeled off that foil, and I've got these gorgeous gold foiled trees. It looks like something you would buy at a store, but you've made it yourself. Now, not only that, I have this extra piece of foil that I'm going to go ahead and save because those look beautiful on cards too. A few of the ladies on the design teams have used both the positive and the negative space from the foiling, and it is such a neat look. You'll have to make sure that you head over to the Clair blog all this week because everybody's going to be sharing their projects with foiling, and it's really, really inspirational this week. Now I want to go ahead and add a little bit of color behind these. I am using my alcohol markers to do this. You could use any sort of alcohol marker you have. I'm just using the Dick Blick Studio brush markers because that's what I have. I've chosen a few fall colors, so I've got a green, a dark red, orange, yellow, and brown. And I just went ahead, flipped that panel over, and I'm going to color on the back side of it. And this allows me, because the back of it still shows where those trees are, you've got that black outline, you can go ahead and color in the top of those trees. It's super easy to do and see through. Now, another thing that would be great for this is doing some alcohol inks on the background and really letting those shine through. I unfortunately can't use those. The smell just really gives me a headache. I've tried multiple times. But what other people do with them is absolutely gorgeous, and I think that would look gorgeous on the back of this as well. So I went ahead and grabbed out my alcohol markers, and I'm going to go ahead and just continue to scribble those on the back of the tree. You don't want to go over this too many times because then you kind of get a weird look. So just a couple layers and then let it dry. This only takes a few seconds to dry since you're using your alcohol markers. It doesn't take long at all, and it does dry completely on there. So that is a good thing. If you're using something like watercolor, this is a slick surface. It's not going to dry on there. You really need something alcohol based to color on the back of that. And if you don't have alcohol markers and you don't want to get them, you don't want to color with them, I totally get that. It took me a long time to get them as well. But another thing that would work on the back of these is just regular Sharpies. Those would dry on the back of this as well, and those you can pick up at Target or Walmart, any place like that, and you can color on the back of these and it will dry down for you. So I'm moving on to orange, and I'm coloring all the trees that are on this, the particular type of tree, with one color. I thought that would look best instead of going back and forth, and then that way I know I have a good spaced out variety of color on here instead of trying to figure out how I want to space these out myself. This just saved me a little bit of time, and the work was already done for me figuring out what I should color everything. I'm going back in with that tree for the larger stamp, and then I only have a few little more trees to color in here. And that is that center one, and the one in the top left hand corner it will be. And then I've also got that center one that I'll color in with a little bit of red. And then I gave this just a few seconds to dry, but I did want to give you a close-up of how that looks on the back. It is such a neat look. It's almost three-dimensional because you have that, you've colored on the back and you've got that gold foil on top. It gives it a little spaced out look, which is really cool in real life. Now I wanted to add a little bit something more to this card, so I went ahead and grabbed the Fall Leaves stamp set. This is from Clair Stamps, and I went ahead and stamped all of those little solid images that you see there. This is a 2-set stamp, and it is amazing for fall. So I stamped all those in different colors of ink, and there you can see I've got them all stamped out. I just used a variety of colors of inks that match the alcohol markers that I've already used. I'll leave all the supplies that I use down in the description box, ink colors, the type of inks, all that great stuff. So if you have any questions about those, you can always find them linked down below. Now, these also have little veins that you can stamp inside them. This would be gorgeous doing a background just like this, and then adding some gold foil to the veins on these. That would be gorgeous. But for this, I had a little bit of shine going on in the background, and I'm actually going to do a foiling for the sentiment as well. So I decided to keep the veins just brown. So I'm using icing on the cake from Catherine Pooler to put in those brown veins. And this is just a really fun stamp set. Once I got all the veins stamped in, I did go ahead and fussy cut these. If you have an electronic cutting machine though, and you buy this stamp set, you don't have to do fussy cutting because Clair Stamps always gives free cutting files with all of their stamp sets that you buy. So nothing extra that you have to pay for. You just get those automatically as a free download. Now, for my sentiment, I am going to be using the peel and stick toner sheets. If you do not have a laser printer, these are amazing to have. These are amazing to have if you do have a laser printer. I have a laser printer. These already have adhesive on the back of them, and they were a lot easier to use than my regular printed laser sheets that I do at home. So I wanted to try this out and see which worked better. If I die cut first and then foiled, or if I foiled first and then die cut. So for my first little test here, I went ahead and ran this happy die through my machine with the toner sheet. These die cut beautifully. And then I went ahead and added a little bit of gold foil on the front of that, and I'm going to send the die cut through my laminator. Again, I've let it warm up. I'm going to send this through once, then I can go ahead and peel it out, let it cool off for a second, peel off that foil, and this worked great. I did have a few little spots there that were missing a few pieces, I think because it's such a small, intricate die cut. So I decided to try this another way. I went ahead and took just a piece of the toner paper and a piece of foil that covered it. Gold foil, made sure the shiny side was facing up, and I went ahead and put this through my laminator as well. Then I took it out, let it cool down just for a second to make sure everything was nice and cool and I didn't burn my fingers, and peeled off that foil. I had just a gorgeous rectangle of gold shiny foil. This is a great way to make your own foil paper. If that is something you use a lot, this is a great way to get it done. Now I went ahead and took that same happy die, put it with my gold foil, then I added a piece of computer paper on top of it so it didn't get any of the ridges from my cutting plates in it. And then I went ahead and die cut that. This actually worked better, I think, than doing the die cutting first. So if I were to do this again, I mean, it still worked great die cutting first. It just had a few little pieces because it was such an intricate die cut. But if you do the larger piece and then die cut, it works better in my opinion. Also, I was scared that this would leave a little bit of a white edge, but that didn't happen for me, so it worked perfectly to go ahead and foil a little piece first, then do your die cutting. Just make sure you put that computer paper on top so you don't pick up ridges in the foil from your cutting plates, and you can keep reusing that same piece over and over until you run out of space for die cuts. Now I added another frame in the center of this guy just so I had a place to add my adhesive. Again, you could put liquid adhesive on the back where the gold foil is. Just make sure it's a strong one. And then I wanted to finish off my sentiment, so I am using the Hello Sentiments from Clair stamps. This is a great builder set. I peeled off the little birthday word, and I've got another flag banner that I die cut from some white cardstock. I'm going to stamp birthday right on the right hand side there. I'm using that same icing on the cake ink that I used on the veins for the leaves. That way everything kind of matches. I added that little banner, popped it up with some dimensional adhesive, and then I added that happy, which was so easy to do. All I had to do was peel off the backing to that, and it had its own adhesive on it. I added that to the left-hand side of the banner, and then it was time to start adding my little leaves and create a little bit of a cluster around this frame. So I started off with my larger ones. I placed those down with some just double-sided adhesive. I didn't add any dimensional yet. But for the rest of the leaves, I actually did start popping them up. So I've got a little bit of double-sided dimensional adhesive that I'm placing on the back of these leaves, and I'm just sporadically placing these leaves. I like to go ahead and put them in, kind of play around with the placement, and then once I know I'm happy with it, I go ahead and add my adhesive on the back and then place it down. That way you don't mess up with your placement, and then you've got to try peeling up adhesive and then you rip things. It's best just to play around with your placement, then go ahead and add some adhesive in. I kept playing around with these until I knew I was happy, and then I added one little extra here. I just wanted that added little extra. I wanted everything to be even, so I added those last two little things, smallest leaves that I stamped there. And then once that was finished, that completed the card for today. It is so shiny and gorgeous. I love those clusters of leaves on the left and right side too. It really helps bring the whole card together, and it just screams fall. Here's a closer look at that sentiment. You've got that gold foiled happy, you've got your background, but it also has some color to it, which is great. I love adding the color behind these. It really makes the foil pop even more, and it really helps give it just a little something extra. But that's going to do it for me today. On the left side of your screen, there are going to be links you can click on. You can also subscribe to my channel over there if you haven't already. I want to thank you guys so much for watching today, and happy crafting.